Hey everybody, I'm Leon, and this is Beth, and welcome to the Mystical Mystery Podcast, where we talk murder cases, ghost stories, and conspiracy theories. And today we'll be discussing the Black Dahlia murder case. But before we begin, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Leon. You might know me as Coyote from my Coyote Gaming YouTube channel, and this is my fiancée Beth.
Hi.
She has featured in a couple of my videos in the past, so yeah. Anyway, I think we should begin the Black Dahlia murder case. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's a well-known case. It's literally been big for years now, since it began. It's been a big case, and it's unsolved.
It's one of them ones that kind of got as a cult following as it's gotten older.
Yeah.
Because it's that much of a mystery that because people still want to know actually who killed her.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So the body was found by a mother and daughter, weren't it?
Yes.
It was early in the morning. They thought it was just a Halloween decoration in someone's garden.
Or a mannequin or something.
Yeah.
Because her body was that pale.
Yeah. And to the horror, they actually found out it was a young woman who had been cut in two at the torso. She'd also been given the Glasgow smile, which is where the mouth is slit from like each corner of the lips upwards, sort of like the Joker smile. But yeah, the woman was identified as Elizabeth Short. She was born in July 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Massachusetts. That's a loud motorcycle. That was a car. That car sounded bad. Massachusetts. I can't say it. So, yeah, parents Cleo and Phoebe Short, who'd actually they'd separated, hadn't they?
Yeah, they'd separated. And Cleo, Elizabeth's dad, ended up moving to California while Elizabeth stayed in Massachusetts with her mum. Elizabeth was known to be a really beautiful girl with nice full browny black hair, a slim figure and bright green eyes. She was known to always have a flower in her hair.
Yeah, it says when she got to 18 she became a bit of a wild child. She didn't feel like she belonged in Massachusetts and she moved with her dad in California. But they had a bit of an agreement where the agreement was actually that Dahlia?
Yeah.
Elizabeth would actually cook and clean for him, and then she got to live there rent free. That was the only condition, but she didn't actually stick to that.
She followed the rules of coming in at a certain time and things like that, but she didn't. She was out in total hours, and she'd pretty much be gone for days on end, to the point where she pretty much ended up staying with him for I think it was 3 weeks, and then he decided, I can't handle it anymore, I want you out.
But she actually,
So
he kicked her out, and she ended up actually staying in California though. But she actually got a job. Where was it she got a job?
she started working at Camp Cook, which was a military base, as a post exchange, which was pretty much a shopkeeper where they kept food, clothes and all them items. She left after 9 months to move to San Diego because she wanted to change. She didn't really have a plan though, and she met a woman. She met a woman called Dorothy who worked at a night theatre, and she told Dorothy that she'd moved there. She had no plan, she had nowhere to stay or anything, and them two hit it off and become really good friends, and she ended up moving in with Dorothy for about a month in December 1946 to Jan 1947. Then Elizabeth decided she wanted a next adventure. She told Dorothy that she was moving on and she was going to go see what was out there for her next, and that this man called Red was picking her up.
So basically, she moved around a lot. She never
Yeah.
really stuck in one place for that long.
Yeah, she travelled a lot.
Yeah, so what was it? She met a guy named Red,
Yeah.
who was picking her up in a Studebaker coupe, which is a type of car back then. And
Yeah, he picked her up. Dorothy and her said their goodbyes, and she wished her well. And she didn't really see her after that.
well, that was actually the last time Dorothy seen her, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So
she didn't see her after that.
it was just saying goodbye, and then poof, she was gone. And the morning of January 15th in 1947, a 911 call was to report a dead body that was found naked lying in a grass in the suburbs, laying on its back. Now the key part in that was actually laying on its back, because what was actually noticed, sorry about the paper, was on its back on a back lawn area. What's that? A few steps away from the sidewalk,
Yep.
cut in half. There was actually no ID on the body.
So she was known as a Jane Doe.
Yeah, which a Jane Doe is a name given to a body that actually has no identity, that the police cannot identify. So they just give it the basic name Jane Doe. If it's a male, it's a John Doe.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was reported as a Jane Doe. The body was cut an inch above her belly button, clean in half. And it was a clean cut. The lower half was actually disconnected from the upper half, but they was actually not far away from each other. They was kind of just next to each other, weren't they?
Yeah.
And her right breast was actually cut off, and her big toes was freshly painted in red. There was deep cuts on her forehead and crisscross cuts on her pubic area and her right hip. And there was a cut from each side of her mouth, 3 inches, which is actually the
From side to side, which was
from each
the
side
Joker
upwards,
smile, the
which is-
Glasgow smile.
yeah. And what was that? Signs of being tied up on her arms and legs. She was laid face down after death, so the body had been moved, but there was actually no blood in her body at all. She'd been drained of blood.
But they could tell that her body had been moved because when a person dies, if they're in a certain position, they get this thing that's called
Lividity.
lavidity, yeah. Where pretty much the blood pools to that area and it creates like a purpley, like bruise underneath the skin,
Yeah.
which she had on her face. So when she died, she must have been laid face down.
Which I think that could mean she might have actually been attacked from behind.
Yeah.
So she was obviously I don't know if she was hit with something, if it was bludgeoned or what, but
But she was found naked and there was no, blood anywhere
Yeah.
around the scene. So I reckon she wasn't actually killed there, she was moved.
yeah.
And, there was no blood in her body at all.
Yeah, so she'd been
She's
completely
completely
drained.
drained.
So it's someone who knew what they was doing to get the clean cut and drain
She
the
was
blood from her.
placed there.
Yeah, and be placed there. So, but to do that, it's got to be someone who knows, the human body and how to dissect it,
Yeah, like a
basically.
doctor or something.
Yeah. But I cannot even read that name. Miss what? Bersinger?
Miss Bersinger.
Bersinger, who was the actual 911 caller, was on a walk with her young daughter to actually go to the shoe store. And she thought the body was fake. She went to a nearby house and called 911, but didn't return to the scene to protect her daughter from dead body that was just found.
Potentially seeing a dead body and
Yeah.
seeing a scene that would probably haunt her daughter the rest of her life.
I just whacked the microphone, sorry for that. I'll probably dim that down.
So she didn't return to the scene to investigate further. She just called the police, not
Pretty
being
much.
sure whether it was a dead body or not.
Pretty much to let the police do their job and
Yeah.
take over, do this. I don't want to be anywhere near this stuff. I don't need my kid to know about this stuff.
But police then took the body in. When she went to coroner's office, they did fingerprints and found a match in the system, which identified her as Elizabeth Short. They went to inform Cleo, Elizabeth's dad, to find him drunk and just pretty much angry and things, and he didn't seem to care about his daughter, and he didn't want anything to do with it. So the police informed her mother, Phoebe, who actually got a ticket pretty much the next day and came out and identified her daughter.
But I'm saying though, like, Cleo not caring, that should be a bit of a red flag to police that something's off. I mean, like...
I think it was the fact that, like, after she left, he didn't hear from her at all.
Which could have angered him, I get that, but...
He was drinking. He'd become a heavy drinker, I think.
Yeah, but if your daughter's killed, you're gonna give a shit. You're not
I think
just
he
gonna
was just that drunk, he didn't really.
It didn't really set into him straight away, kind of thing, yeah.
So, a mum came out and identified her and confirmed it was Elizabeth Short's body that was found. I can't imagine how horrifying that must have been for a mother to see.
Yeah.
Because there is pictures out there of what
Yeah,
they did to her body.
We can't show pictures on this podcast. Like,
they're horrific.
They're too gruesome. If you're really into this case,
did you say that right, breast?
Yeah. If you don't really like, if it doesn't bother you, that sort of stuff, go check out those pictures.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of squeamish, I really don't advise looking at those pictures. They're really gruesome pictures of Elizabeth, though, cut in half with like a messed up face. It really did like proper destroy her face.
It really like
mutilated her face.
Yeah. So from this point, police pretty much took the information they knew about Elizabeth and they went to the last place she was really known to have residence, was with Dorothy. So the police went to interview Dorothy. She tells them about Red, and that's all she can tell them about Red and the car that he had.
That's all she knew. She didn't know Red's name.
And the last time that she seen Elizabeth.
Yeah, she just knew him as Red. She didn't know his name.
Yep.
She just knew what he drove, and yeah, that's it.
And the police searched motels nearby, and to different motels all around the area, and got a lead in Pacific Beach, December 19th, because there was somebody staying there with the exact same car, known as Robert Monkley. I think that's how you say his name. If I said it wrong, I apologise. They get a picture of him and show it Dorothy, and she does confirm that this is Red, the person that she's seen Elizabeth leave with that day. So they think they've got a suspect and they start looking for him, which is their only lead at the time. But it turned like he lived in South Beach, because they did a background check on him. It turns out he lived in South Beach, California, and he had a wife and worked as a sales engineer. And on January the 17th, 2 days after the murder, he went to San Francisco with a guy named Harry. So the police checked Harry's house, but no one is home. So they had to wait, pretty much.
Sorry, that's tough to read, isn't it? Well, right. Let me sort of adjust the microphone. Sorry guys, this is literally our first time ever doing anything like this, so sorry if the audio gets a bit choppy here and there while I'm moving the microphone. But yeah. What was it? Was it 2 days after the murder? Yeah, the police checked Harry's house, but no one was home, but Robert's car was in his garage. And police wait outside Harry's house for 2 days until January the 19th. Harry and Robert showed up and they were took into custody, and Robert's car is searched. So they took literally...
They took Robert into custody.
They took them both into custody?
Yeah, they took Robert.
I thought they took them both into custody.
No, just one of them.
They should have took them both, because if his car's there, he obviously, like...
Yeah, but...
He knew him.
Like, people are kind of umming on with it was just a one-person thing, with the, like, crisscross
Yeah, the crisscross.
patterns. It was like a tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe, yeah, or noughts and crosses.
Noughts and crosses like thing on her hip and her pubic area.
Yeah, I'm like, who plays noughts and crosses or tic-tac-toe on their own? Is the point, and it's like,
Who plays it on a body?
well, when you've got no paper, you've got to do what you got to do.
That's as wrong. But yeah.
But yeah, they question Robert and they give him 2 polygraph tests, which are lie detector tests. And he passes both of them, so he had to be released because they had nothing on him. But the media get a hold of the story. And people People became obsessed with the murder of the beautiful young girl. And the media gave him the name Black Dahlia because of her dark, full hair. And she always had a flower in her hair. And she had a thing for black underwear, apparently. I don't know who found out she had a thing for black underwear or what.
I don't even think that was real. I think that was just like a whole, oh, let's make it so what she was wearing and that. But she wasn't wearing any clothes, so how would they have known that?
Yeah, I think they were just trying to sexualise this whole thing.
It was like, oh, let's make it like sexy. Let's put, oh, she like black lacy underwear.
Yeah, because like sex sells and like the news are going to want to...
bring in appeal.
Yeah, they're going to want to
and
like...
bring in attraction. Cause
sell papers, let's be
if you
honest.
think about it, it's like back in them times in the 1950s area, like media was a really like male driven business.
Yeah.
It was men what wrote it. So they were gonna put in whatever they wanted to try and draw attention to it.
But it's like they're gonna want like sexual things, because like sex sells to people, and they're gonna want to shift papers, they're gonna want to shift news articles, they want to get everything out there and draw people's attention to it. Not just in a way to solve the case, they're just wanting the numbers up, they're just wanting money in the pockets. That's why they come up with things like that. Like, it's not even... there's no evidence that she was actually into that sort of stuff, it's just what people are making up.
Yeah.
But anyway, after a month, police have no suspects and people were getting impatient and feeling unsafe in their own area. And it led to people confessing to the murder, but they had no evidence to prove that they actually did it. They were just trying to claim the murder as theirs.
Yeah, because it was becoming such like a famous case that people were trying to kind of get like the 5 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
From saying, oh, I murdered this person.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
But like, police actually did end up getting did end up getting letters from the supposed killer. They were sending Elizabeth's personal items to the police, including her address book that she always carried with her. And the address book actually had missing pages. And the police began to think maybe those missing pages could contain the murderer's information.
Yeah.
Because, like, who randomly just rips out pages of address book? Hey, up there's my mate Barry in this address book. I'll take that. I need to give Barry a call later. It's like...
I have someone's address book, like...
Yeah, it's like the address book that she always carried. So I think she had, like, obviously she was dressed. She weren't just wandering the streets naked. She had her, like, possessions with her unless she was, like, maybe going on a night out or to her friends or something like that.
But then again, there's a lot of conspiracies with this too, which we'll get on to a little bit later on because it'll make a bit more sense.
Yeah.
But it could have had anything on it. It could have just had like the last location she was at.
Yeah, it could have
before she died.
It could have also just had like some notes in like, oh yeah, tonight I need to go and meet my friend and go for a drink at such and such a time, and we're meeting at this pub. And like, it could have had that in it, and they're like, oh wait, no, we can't let the police know that she was here, because then they know I was there. And the killer really, really covered the tracks for this one.
It was like he was taunting the police, going, you probably know who I am, but you're ignoring it. I'm right under your nose, sort of thing.
It was the policeman's moustache. Right under his nose. That was a bad joke. But yeah, it was by February the 5th in 1947, 2 arrests were made for the case. Robert, Red, they actually got him back, because I think they found some more stuff that maybe...
They arrested him again.
And they also arrested a guy called Dan. But they had to release Red because they didn't have enough on him, so they had to let him go again. But Dan actually confessed, but he later claimed he was mentally unwell, and that's why he confessed to the killer and that he really didn't do it. But another suspect came out, an infamous Hollywood doctor to the stars, George Hodel. Now, he was actually a pretty popular guy, but he was a messed up kind of guy. Like, I'll get into that in a moment,
But this is also kind of where the conspiracy in it comes from, because I've heard a lot of different things on this case. So I've done a lot of research on it, where people claim that she went to George Hodel, because apparently he did backstreet abortions as well. Because back then it was apparently illegal.
actually, I've got something a bit later on down this. It's got something to do with abortions. It's a pretty big part of this.
So I'll leave it until later.
It's literally like just down here.
Okay.
But like, that actually comes into it, the abortion thing. Because a bit later on it says down here, but friends of George actually recognised photos of Elizabeth in the newspapers, and a tip was given to the police that Elizabeth was briefly dating George, and Elizabeth was seen at George's house where he threw a lot of dodgy parties.
Yeah.
And the police look into George and see that he has a dark past. He was accused of sexually assaulting his daughter, who was only 14 at the time, and his daughter became pregnant, and George attempted an abortion on his own daughter, but it failed. So he put the child up for adoption. And there was a trial, but it ended up being acquitted, and he got let away. But he did become a suspect, and the police strongly thought that this was the guy who killed the Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
But like the whole abortion thing,
It's still thought today, though, to have been the Black Dahlia killer.
but back to the whole like abortion
A
thing.
lot of people have said that what if it was an abortion gone wrong?
Splitting her in two though, that's one dodgy way to do an abortion.
He could have just gone mad with it.
It could have been an abortion gone wrong. She actually died during the abortion and thought, you know what, I need to get rid of this, and figured cutting her up would be a way to do it.
Yeah.
But obviously just like couldn't be asked to.
And it also explained, because he was a doctor, the surgical precision that was involved with cutting her in two.
Yeah.
And it's also been rumoured that there was photos found of her in his home.
Yeah, but
personal photos.
Friends of George that actually recognised her from being at those parties, they said, hold on, she was with George.
Yeah.
So they was obviously together at some point, so they had a connection there. Whether it was a sexual
This was
or
the biggest lead in the whole case.
Oh yeah, but the police need a confession, and obviously with him being rich and a famous guy, he ain't just gonna confess to killing a woman. So the police actually eventually bug his home and listen in to things that have been said in his house. So that's the thing that's still used today, is bugging, because it's such a good way to get confessions out of people without actually bringing them to an interrogation room.
Yeah.
So I'll let you get back to reading when we get back to your handwriting, because mine's a bit of a pain to read in it. But yeah, on February 18th in 1950, the police are listening in to George, and he's on his phone. At about 8:30 p.m, they hear a woman scream, and again 2 minutes later. It was noted that no one was actually hurt in the house after 6:50 p.m. The woman was not in any conversation that was in the house, and she wasn't heard from again after the screams. So the LAPD go into the house and go and check, but nothing was found. And George was on the phone a bit later on, and they heard him say, putting a pillow over her face and covering her with a blanket, which was an actual quoted thing that was said. And some time passes, and George is heard saying over the phone again, I suppose I did kill the Black Dahlia, but they can't prove it. Oh God, right, I'll say that again. Suppose I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now, they can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. His secretary had just died of an overdose.
A suspected overdose.
Yeah, a suspected overdose. And they actually found out through like books and that in his home when they searched it later on that he was actually paying off police.
Yeah.
Because this guy had a lot of money and he had a lot of power. And he was able to like pay off police and get off with stuff. I'm saying if he can pay off police, he might be able to pay some high-ranking officers to get away with this murder. But yeah, there's a big chance he actually had something to do with it. But in April 1950, there was actually enough evidence to charge George of the murder, but it was too late. He'd already fled the US. He'd already ran away
To
from
me,
America.
that's a sign of a guilty man. Like,
Oh yeah.
right there and there, like, it pretty much just says it. And to me, like, whether it's in the US or not, I'd have put like
Put money on his head.
I'd have put a worldwide
APB.
Yeah, he could be like on him.
Yeah, to actually
Because
get
he's
him.
in somebody else's jurisdiction. It don't mean he's not going to stop him from doing it in like anywhere else he goes.
Yeah. It was actually said that he went to the Philippines, but we're not sure. All I know is that he actually left the US.
Yeah. George had a son who was called Steve. He believed his dad was responsible for Liz's murder, so Elizabeth's murder, that Dahlia case, and many more, for that matter. And he revealed that George would secretly come back to the States, and Steve believed when he did this, he was coming back to kill more people, which is always a possibility, which is kind of sad, really, when you think
Yeah,
about
it's
it.
kind of
that-
messed up that he was coming back to the US
and getting away with it.
maybe killing more people and getting away with murdering
Yeah.
more innocent people.
So when he got older, when Steve got older, he wanted answers on his dad, and in 2013, George's garden on his like estate home, what he lived in at the time, where when the Black Dahlia case and everything took place, he had the grounds tested for human remains, which they ended up coming back positive. But the only downside of this test is it can't tell you how long they've been there. It can't tell you who's there or anything like
Yeah,
that.
it just comes back as positive or negative. So
For
like
human remains.
they actually had no evidence that it was Dahlia or
murder victims.
an actual murder. It could have been someone that had
just been buried there.
just been buried there like 100 years before the place
Yeah.
was even built.
So, which is, it's got to be kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's got to be
Um,
extremely annoying.
Like, Steve then wrote a book about his dad and how he believed that he was the Black Dahlia killer, because he really did believe that his dad could have done this.
Let's be honest, a doctor, especially a Hollywood doctor, he had the tools to actually do this. He had the money to do it, he had the equipment to do it. He had everything was pointing directly at him. There might as well have been a big illuminated sign pointing at this guy saying,
Yeah.
"Hey yo, I'm the one who killed this Black Dahlia."
Yeah, but years passed and George got let off the hook because they never
Case
sent.
essentially went cold. didn't
Yeah, it went cold because they never sent to really catch up with him.
it? Yeah, he was gone. He was out of town. He was
Um,
having nothing to do with this case.
And on the 24th of November 1950, a woman called Christine Reynolds, who was a 35-year-old mum of three, called on a tip to confess for the murder, and she was the 27th person to actually ring in to confess.
27 people just wanted a bit of clout. They wanted a bit of fame. Just oh yeah, I did it. Come and arrest me. I'll do time for nothing.
Yeah.
And people are weird.
But there's more goes into this than probably most of the others. I think this woman actually genuinely thought she may have hurt someone, though, because she woke up from a drunk night, like from a night where she'd been drunk, can't remember anything, and she was covered in blood. And she
Oh.
genuinely thought that she had killed someone.
Whose blood was it?
We don't know. The police never followed it up.
Oh.
But yeah, she claimed that she'd had like love affairs with Hollywood stars, and apparently she lived with Elizabeth at the time of her murder, and knew her as Libby, not Elizabeth,
Weird.
which was a bit weird. Apparently they met at a bar 3 years prior.
Oh.
And had a love affair of their own. But apparently the night of like the murder apparently she went to a bar to find Elizabeth cheating on her with another woman.
The woman's name was actually Louise.
Called Louise.
Yeah.
And Chris said to Elizabeth, "Come on, we're going."
But they actually started arguing in the bar.
And they had an argument in the bar as well as on the car ride home, where Christine claims to have choked Elizabeth on the drive home.
But Elizabeth actually managed to get free from the choke. Obviously she was fighting back and managed to open the car door and just jump out and start running.
Yeah. She managed to just run. She didn't manage to get that far because Christine pulled up the car, got out, come up from behind her, and apparently put her in a chokehold. But apparently she had like a flip blade on her.
Yeah, she had a flip knife on her.
And apparently she forgot that she had the flip blade on her. And she attacked her from behind and says that she had stabbed her. Which
if you stab someone, I'm like...
wouldn't make that much sense with how the body was found.
Yeah, there'd also be a lot of blood everywhere, and there was no blood at the scene.
Yep.
But Christine actually claims to have done something that wasn't public knowledge.
Yeah, she claimed to have cut off some of Elizabeth's hair and stick it in her lower regions.
Pretty much, she stuffed her own hair up her vagina.
Yeah, in
Elizabeth's vagina. Yeah.
Which wasn't public knowledge. The police hadn't released that to the media or to anybody. The only people that would have known that was the family and police while working at the time. So they thought, maybe
Maybe
something's
something
not
about
quite
this.
right.
Yeah.
So the police had her in and they talked to her, like questioned her, and then she later admitted that she had lied and she had a friend what was a police officer what had told her these details, but because she woke up from a night where she'd been drunk, covered in blood, and she couldn't remember it, she genuinely thought that she had hurt somebody.
And it lined up too well with the Black Dahlia case. That's why she sort of convinced herself that maybe she had done it.
Yeah. I think she was just trying to find a way to pay for the guilt that she may have felt because she thought she could have killed somebody.
Yeah.
And kind of put two and two together to make up an elaborate story.
Yeah.
Which, in a sense, I feel sorry for this woman because she must have been somewhat ill to be able to make up this story.
Yeah, I think she'd made herself ill with the guilt that she could have done something to someone.
Yeah, but people like in the media got hold of this story and made out that it was sick and twisted because apparently, because lesbianism and stuff like that was a big no-no back in the 50s, and it was known as to be grotesque and pervy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they made pretty much Elizabeth out to be a perv and like a loose woman pretty much because she was having love affairs with women.
Yeah.
Which wasn't actually proven to be true at all.
It's not like she can defend herself. She's in
Yeah.
2 parts and dead and buried.
But
Could ask her legs one story and her head another one.
the police had several different things come through. They had a sketch sent in what had written on it, "This is the Black Dahlia killer," and they sent it to the police department.
They actually sent it to the police department in North Carolina,
Yeah,
which
in North
they
Carolina.
then sent it to the LA police department.
Yeah. But the sketch actually looked like George.
Yeah.
And people still to this day believe it was actually George what killed her.
Yeah.
But there was murders what took place before Elizabeth in Cleveland, Ohio, which was so similar to hers, and people kind of speculated, what if she was a victim of a serial killer
Yeah, because
known as the
in-
Cleveland Torso Killer?
yeah, because he actually did a similar thing. He actually cut people in half the same way Elizabeth was cut.
Yeah.
And it just lines up too well. But there was actually a thing that maybe the Cleveland Torso Killer could have moved out west, but Elizabeth had been his last victim.
Yeah.
Or people are maybe thinking that George was actually the Cleveland Torso Killer,
Yeah.
and he'd moved to LA, killed Elizabeth, and moved somewhere else out the way of everything that he'd done. So, in a way, no one knows. There's actually 2 cold cases there, which is the Black Dahlia and the Cleveland Torso Killer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So maybe we'll have to do one eventually on the Cleveland Torso Killer.
Yeah.
Because they could be possibly interlinked.
Yeah.
But even today, people still question who killed her, what actually happened that night, and she still had family actually. What has lived, and not long since recently died, because she actually had a sister,
Oh, yeah?
which I can't actually remember her name. I think it was like Virginia or something. Her sister's name.
Oh.
And she was like wanting to know. She's been looking for answers, even as
Yeah.
like an older woman. In later life, she was looking for answers still,
Yeah.
because as a family, I think if you was to go through this, you would always be looking for answers as to what happened.
Yeah.
To a family member, what had been the victim of such a horrific, brutal crime.
Yeah.
And it's sad that I think like none of them ever got any answers.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad thing that like something like this goes unanswered for such a long time. I mean, even with like, because back then they didn't have the technology that we have nowadays to kind of find something like this, find a killer. But I mean, it seems like he's covered his tracks. Whoever's done it has covered their tracks pretty damn well.
But like she was a 23-year-old woman at the time of her death, so she had like a whole life ahead of her, and it was cut short in such a horrific way.
Yeah. So gruesome. Like.
Nobody actually knows what actually killed her though,
Yeah. So there's like.
because she was so
So
mutilated.
mutilated after death that no one knows the way that she was actually killed. She could have been bludgeoned, she could have been stabbed,
Suffocated.
suffocated,
Anything.
drugged or anything.
But
Whatever killed her, they covered the tracks really well, but even today, like, so many years later, no one knows anything.
there's films on it, there's books on it, there's documentaries on it, there's a lot of things on this case, and I think it's one of them where it's always going to be a mystery, because I don't know whether it's actually ever possible to solve it, because
I don't think it will be solvable. I mean, especially this long on.
mm,
It's like, so most of the people around that time they're gone now. that they've passed away. So there's no way of actually catching that killer.
Like nowadays, would have been able to like get DNA evidence from underneath the fingernails or something like that if she'd
Yeah.
have fought back.
I mean, it's said that nowadays in like the first 48 hours they can get a lead.
Mm.
Let alone, what, 70 years on? Like, yeah, something like that, like 50, 60, yeah, 70 years on.
Yeah.
There's nothing found.
So.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to end this podcast here, or we could go on a little bit longer?
I don't think there's much more to say about this other than, like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, let us know in the comments on this podcast what you guys think.
Also, let us know what you want to hear from us next. Like,
Yeah, if there's any cases you want to hear about,
or conspiracy theories,
conspiracy theories,
or
ghost stories, anything like that, we will do a podcast on. But we have an idea for the next podcast. It's going to be mainly linked on conspiracy theories, a certain conspiracy theory, and this has just been one long, fun first podcast for us to do. We figured we'd do a case, an unsolved case, one that's well known, and you guys might like hearing about. So if you did enjoy it, give us a like on this podcast and let us know what you thought of it. And while you're there, why not subscribe to us? Hit the bell icon so you're notified when our next podcast goes up. And we really hope you enjoyed it.
Sorry, it's a bit messy. It's our first one.
Yeah, a little bit messy. There's times where I clip the microphone with the book and things like that. I'll try and dampen those down a little bit.
We'll get better as we go on, I swear.
Yeah. But anyway, bye guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye.